Hello, this is EJK, and this is going to be an analysis between Maru and Reality. It was played from GSL Code A groups earlier this month. And I must say, I will apologize in advance for my coughing and my clearing of the throat. I know that it can get pretty annoying sometimes, but I don't really have anything. I don't really know actually what I can do to stop it. It's kind of just with me all year round. There's some times where it behaves, but for the most part, it's always there. Trying not to clear throat. I think I'll just try to step away from the webcam or just go away and for a brief second so that it'll be at least quieter. That's, I think, the best I can do. But I can do a lot better in analyzing this game. Oh. This is not where I wanted to start. Alright, so I want to actually start with the openers. The openers were very standard. Neither player SCV scouted at all, so there's a gentleman's agreement that a macro game is occurring. Maru is going to be going for a tech lab on his starport. He's not going to be opening up with a cyclone defense either, which I thought was kind of interesting. I guess he wanted to really get a Raven out fast. Reality, on the other hand, isn't going for much standardness either. He's going to open up Cloak Banshees. Maru does not see the Cloak Banshees, and he still switches his starport onto the barracks with a tech lab to make a Viking, and then a Raven. So based off of the fact that he did not scout anything that Reality is doing, we can assume that this was part of Maru's build all along, to build the Viking first and then the Raven as defense against timings such as Reality's Banshee timing. With Reality scouting the fast third command center and the reactor on the factory, that isn't enough evidence to say that the Terran player is going for Mech or Bio. You can, of course, open up Reactor Hellions for defense for a faster third command center, and then switch off and then go into Bio. So Reality doesn't know quite yet that Maru is going for Mech. It's very important for the Bio player to ID what your opponent is doing, aka if he's going Bio or Mech, as fast as possible. The longer the wait time before finding out that you're playing against a Mech player, the worse off you're going to be. So nothing too much going on here. I like how Maru made the 2 Widow Mines as defense. Because he's light on anti-air, he only has a single Viking that shoots up. I don't believe he even made a Marine. Seeing the 2 Widow Mines to help zone and also to help against drop defense is, I think, a very good choice by Maru. He certainly has the resources for it as well. Now, Reality just now starts to scan, and seeing the barracks with a reactor and the factory without a tech lab, so A, that means their stim is not on the way just yet. B, that means there hasn't been any siege tank production either. And the only reason why you wouldn't make siege tanks earlier on is because you're going for a Hellion-based mech opener, and so you don't need the siege tanks for defense. That scan alone pretty much is good enough evidence for Reality to know that Maru is going for Mech, because of the funky layout structure of the production buildings. We see a second tech lab already on the way in Viking production. So Reality, it's safe to say that Reality made the correct read and that Maru is going for Mech-based play. And it's not too late to find out that your opponent is going Mech. It was a decent scouting time. Maru scanning Reality because he needs to know whether Reality is going for a fast air transition or not. But seeing the 5 Raxes means that it's fairly standard play, and both players are approaching the kind of sit-back mid-game portion of this matchup in both fairly good spots. One thing I do want to take note of, or point out, is that Maru has his macro is going to be inefficient because he has a reactor starport and he has 5 factories and he has double upgrades. You can't afford all of this on 3 base gas, so you're going to have throughout times you have to expect to know exactly how many Vikings you want, like when to make siege tanks over Vikings, when to get your upgrades over your army units, and so forth. So there's a little bit of reactionary macro coming in play as a result. But having the double armories really strengthens your mech army early on. Being even upgrades with the bio player is very, very helpful. It makes it more difficult for different mech units to get picked off, such as siege tanks against marauders, and also increases the amount of damage a lot. Siege tanks tend to scale very well. I believe it's like +5 attack when they're sieged up, and yeah, I'm pretty sure it's +5 attack when they're sieged up. So right now both players are kind of jostling for the middle of the map, and Maru kind of wins this. Reality really shouldn't have. I mean, that was just good micro on Maru's part, to be honest. Nothing that Reality was doing really incorrectly. And Maru's starting his 4th base on the low ground means that he is not intending to move anywhere anytime soon. He's essentially pinned down to that area. And Reality is also starting his 4th base as well. Economy-wise, or like game plan-wise, where you want to expand, both players are expanding in fairly good positions. I don't think it particularly matters which 4th base you take as the Bioterm player, just that you take your 4th base at a fairly good time. Now, although Reality is taking his 4th base at about the same time as Maru, their economy is quote-unquote even. He is going to be double expanding later on to increase his economic lead. And if you can't double expand when you're taking your 4th base, so like when you're on 3 bases, take your 4th and 5th base at the same time, then going up to 4 bases and then double expanding your 5th and 6th base is just fine as well. It's up to the bio player to create an economic advantage by out expanding against the mech player. So, not a lot of action has been going on. As the bio player, Reality recognizes that he needs to eventually do some sort of damage to successfully transition into Sky Terran. We see his starports going up, and his 2nd armory is being placed too, so he's now just starting the transition. And what I like about his play here is that he is able to get a lot of damage done, while at the same time trading away his bio army. So he gets good siege tank placement over here, and he's really able to punish Maru for it. He immediately targets down Maru's siege tanks as well, instead of wasting shots on things like SCVs and the planetary fortress. So he's able to maintain that position, and already that's poking a thorn in Maru's side, because his 4th base is essentially being denied from mining. He has like half of the 4th base being able to mine. But this medevac drop, the medevac drops coming up next, is going to be good play by Reality. There we go. So the medevacs come in. To be honest, he doesn't know this for sure, but he probably could have even gone into the natural. There's only 1 turret in the natural. A little bit of miscontrol by Reality, not being able to properly unload his medevacs fast enough, but that doesn't really make much of a difference. The fact that Reality is in this position and able to kill a lot of SCVs, the supply difference is really reflected in the SCV difference. So although the supplies are very different, the army sizes are relatively the same, and Maru does have enough of an army to still stabilize and not die to an immediate follow-up while he regains his economy. So now that Reality has done a lot of damage, I want to take a little pause in the game so that we can understand where both players are at. In terms of oh my gosh, stupid taskbar. In terms of expanding, so 1 base, 2 base, 3 base, 4 base, 5 base. Reality is going to be 1 base, 2 base, 3 base, 4 base, 5 base, and his 6th base is going to be over here. Now, as the game progresses from this point on, after your 4th base is established, the rest of the game essentially becomes a split map scenario, where both players will take the map, and the two gold bases will usually determine the outcome of a split map situation because they are the hardest to hold. With that in mind, a more what's a good word for it? I guess for lack of better words, a smarter approach by Reality would have been to, since the map is being split now, after you recognize that, to take this base over this base. Like float your command center to the gold island, or the gold quote-unquote peninsula, rather than the base he's currently floating his orbital to now. The reason behind this is because the base that Reality is floating towards now means, or is essentially going to be there the entire game. It's not a very difficult base to defend. It's very easy to hold and to secure. The gold base, on the other hand, is a lot more riskier to hold. It is a lot harder to maintain control of as well. Now, the reason why it would be safe for Reality to take the gold base right now is because Maru has just lost a lot of army. He's going to be in a turtle mode for a very long time while he regains his economy and attempts to move out to take his 5th base. So right now, Reality has complete map control, and we see him taking advantage of that by mass expanding all over the place and adding production. Another mistake that Reality makes here is that he doesn't secure the most important position on the map, which is the middle of the map. By securing that, you essentially secure all of these bases. They cannot be harassed, and you also provide a much more easier attack path to your enemy bases as well. So your enemy just can't sit in 2 spots and defend everywhere at once. Well, I mean, realistically, Maru's most likely going to be able to take the 5th base without any pressure. But the 6th, 7th, and 8th bases are really where Reality can take advantage of containing the middle of the map and keeping it away from Maru. But that's one mistake that Reality is going to be making throughout this entire game, not recognizing the importance of the middle of the map and utilizing it to its full advantage. That and not taking the gold base, because the gold base would have provided him with a lot of extra economy right now, and he would have been able to take a much better economic lead. Another idea here is that if it's a split map situation, you want to mine as much money as possible from your opponent's side of the map. So what I would have loved to see from Reality is for him to take a quote-unquote proxy base in one of Maru's base areas, along with taking the gold base. Like, at least take the gold base, and if you're feeling really risky, take like an additional base. That would really put Maru at a disadvantage by coming in with a lot less minerals to his name as the game progresses, when he does finally decide to take that base. So Reality is now transitioning to air. There was some tricky decision making he had going on with his unit compositions, and I had to rewatch the VOD to fully understand his reasoning. Right now, he's scanning all over Maru's base, essentially to look at Maru's unit composition and to see if Maru is going into some sort of sky tech switch. But he only sees 2 reactor starports, so I think Reality's feeling very confident right now that he'll be able to outproduce Maru in the air. And the reason why Maru makes the Widow Mines is because he needs some sort of stabilizer unit to propel him into the later stages of the game, so that he can start accumulating more starport units without being at the risk of being overwhelmed by a bio switch or losing the sky battle too early and essentially losing the game. So I like the Widow Mine play by Maru. For Reality, in the future, the correct responses to Widow Mine play are to increase your siege tank count and to aggressively attack into the mech player whenever they try to move out with their Widow Mines and siege tanks, and try to chip off parts of their army a little bit at a time. The Widow Mine recharge takes a while to reload, of course, and so that style is a more tempo-based game. But if you want to play a more macro-oriented game, a game based less on your mechanics and more on the decision making, then going for siege tanks would be the best option here. So Reality is making a bunch of Vikings right now, whereas Maru is making a bunch of Widow Mines. And this is kind of stabilizing the game right now. There's not really much that Reality wants to do. There's a lot of things that he could have done. He has a very, very large Viking count. And he has a fairly good Bioforce as well. Yes?
Converter for when you went to Brazil.
I didn't use one.
No, but you took it.
I didn't take one. I didn't take one, so I didn't put it anywhere. Okay, where was I? Oh yeah, the Widow Mines. So, the Widow Mines by Reality are, or by Maru, I think really threw Reality off on what he was supposed to build. I think Reality is used to getting the air advantage and then winning the game from there. But because he can't do that, because of the Widow Mines, he can't deal with them, he was kind of confused as what to make for his final, like to add into his army to be able to defeat Maru's army. So Reality right now is sacrificing some SCVs. That's a big mistake, by the way. Sacrificing, like throwing them to your enemy. You're better off killing off those units so that your opponent doesn't know that you're like making room for supply and you're trying to transition into something else. So Reality is essentially giving Maru free information that he is looking to go into the ultra late game, thin out his SCV count, replace it with more units, and create a very large army. Now, what I was saying earlier about occupying this middle area is being reflected right here. Maru essentially just walks up to this area, and he's essentially claimed it as his area right now. Reality has had control of the map for the past couple minutes since he dropped Maru and killed all those SCVs off, but he never solidified this position with with his army in a pre-spread formation or any missile turrets or even a sensor tower to just solidify this position. And so as a result, Maru was able to secure this part of the map, one of the most difficult parts of the map that the mech player should be able to secure, because to secure this place as the mech player almost solidifies your position to being unlosable. So now Maru is going around the Viking army. Like the Viking and Liberators, if they were positioned in the middle of the map, this would never have happened in the first place. And then the fact that Reality had all of his bio units out of position as well and ended up losing them means that he's going to be waiting a while to replace them as well. So just and that all comes down to not being able to occupy that middle of the map effectively, and Reality essentially just panicked and didn't have a strong response to Maru walking to take that important position in the map. That's really good play by Maru, breaking down the rocks there so that any future attacks to that bottom hand 6 o'clock base or 5 o'clock base are going to be a lot easier to get to. Like, you don't have to wait to break down the rocks or go over it. You can just essentially attack it as soon as possible. So after Reality has sacrificed all of his bio units, he doesn't really know what to build right now. I would say this is where he starts to lose control of the game unit compositionally, because he's adding in Banshees and he's getting Banshee speed. And then we see the Banshees do absolutely 0 damage. So Reality isn't really aware of what he's supposed to be building or what he's supposed to be doing at this point in the game, I believe. He is getting the Ravens, which is good. So I think his reasoning was to try to switch over to a pure air army. Now that doesn't work too well against this Widowmine type play that Maru has going for him. But I think the Ravens alone would have been enough. But Reality just didn't want to add on a lot of bio units, because he's essentially given up ever winning on the ground against Maru's army. Now, we see on the minimap, Reality's going for a massive amount of scans, and that's to kind of, like, hold on, was he? Was he making the ghosts? Okay, that was the first set of scans. So what he's really worried about, and we see this reflected throughout the rest of the game, is losing the air fight. He's building up a lot of Ravens now. He's had a superior amount of air units. He's had superior upgrade lead with said air units. And now he's adding the Ravens and the Banshees. He doesn't really have an effective way to deal with the Widow Mines, though, that's for sure. And yeah, so he's like all these scans going down. He's just really concerned about not wanting to lose the air fight and wanting to maintain air dominance. We see here again, Reality was attempting to build a couple turrets, but that is quickly foiled, and Maru again is able to walk freely across that middle of the map. And now Maru is able to go on the aggressor. Because he controls that map, he can now threaten Reality's other bases, and he puts Reality in a much more stressful situation, I would say. Both players are too afraid to fight, rightfully so. These armies have ridiculous defenders' advantages, so if either player was trying to attack into it, they would most certainly be going into the fight with a disadvantage. The Widowmine's defensive capability and the Raven's defensive capabilities are sort of buffering the armies from each other so that they can't directly engage. Maru's still able to... So basically Maru's able to slowly go across the map, and he's able to take out a couple bases of Reality, which is a very good trade for his army, I would say. Mostly because this really limits... like, killing all of these bases really limits Reality's ability to control the pace of the game. And against mech play, you almost never want to allow the mech player to have control of what's going on in the game. But we do see Maru being the aggressor with this mech-based army, and it's mostly because he was able to just freely walk across the middle of the map without any what's the word I'm looking for? Any pressure, or not pressure. He was met with no opposition. That's what I want to say. So, losing some of his army, he still maintains his air army, which is the most important part, for 2 bases. So now if we look at the bases, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bases for Reality. Maru has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bases. If Reality took the gold base, he would have been in a very good position, I might point out again. The gold base has not been scouted. It hasn't even been scanned by Maru, so Maru, it's not even in Maru's head right now if Reality could have taken it or not. "32 Vikings against 23, and 14 Ravens on top of that. I would say that Reality is going into an overkill mode in trying to maintain the air. He's really not reacting properly to the Widow Mines that Maru made. He isn't changing anything about his play, actually, to deal with the Widow Mines. So now that Maru has established yet another base, he's now in the dominant position. And Reality's scanning right here. He's doing a mass scan we see on the minimap. He's looking for more air. I guess he's looking for like hidden ravens or something. But he's just not seeing it. And I believe that's why he also made the Ghost Academy in preparation for the said eventual Raven switch, which Maru never does. So he's making the ghosts right now. We see 4 ghosts on the production tab, and then they go away because he scans. He doesn't see any ravens again. Here, I'll do that one more time. So we see the ghost making, then we see Reality scan. There we go. He sees no ravens or like air units or any reason to make the ghosts, and then he doesn't make them. So that's definitely in preparation, in anticipation of the inevitable Raven switch, which Maru never actually does. So Reality was actually, I feel like he was beating himself up. He was losing the game himself. Like, he was throwing the game rather than Maru even doing anything at this point. Reality's really in his own head and really trying to figure out the best thing to do at this point. He has a lot of money too, and he's only at 150 supplies, so he just doesn't know what to make right now. Like I said earlier, siege tanks are the correct response. If you have siege tanks, a little bit of bio, and then air control, you can slowly push forward and break this area. Maru is now adding sensor turrets. Now this is the first time that Reality's kind of like, that's funny to watch. If he threw down more, what's it called, auto turrets, he would have been able to kill the Widow Mines faster. What that does for Maru is essentially pushed back Reality's entire army so that Maru now has 100% control of that middle area. So right before that happened, Maru was setting up, he set up the turret defense. So Maru recognizes the importance of this area. By having turrets, Reality never even gave a crap about securing his side of the map. Now that Maru's secured his side of the middle base, he's able to secure the rest of the middle base with this Widow Mine push essentially. This is very funny to watch. More auto turrets would have been better than Hunter Seeker missiles. Even landing like a couple Vikings, or I don't even know. This is just very funny to watch. So now Reality starts the ghost production. After making almost nothing for like an entire minute, he decides that he's gonna just max out on ghosts. So okay, that's his endgame plan. That's why he's making the ghosts now, and he doesn't see any ravens. Like he scanned once, he didn't see any ravens. He scanned the second time, he didn't see any ravens. He scanned a third time when he was making the ghosts, he didn't see any ravens. And then now he still doesn't see any ravens, but he's just like, well, I don't know what else to build, so I'm just going to build the ghosts anyways. So with Maru being able to control the middle of the map, he's again able to walk freely across the map and be able to start to threaten Reality's other bases. So Reality's finally taking the gold base, yay, a little bit too little too late. And we see the final battle go on right now. The Hunter Seeker missiles were a big mistake because they're simply too easy to micro out of. The PDD is a lot more effective, and then having some auto turrets on the ground, I would say, would help against the tanks and the Widow Mines. That battle was ugh. So Maru was able to win that battle pretty well, mostly because he just had a better unit composition. The Ravens didn't really do anything for him. And at this point in the game is all but lost. But Maru doesn't need to rush his win because there's only a limited amount of resources left on the map. So it's more important to take correct battles and be more cost efficient with your units than it is to try to end the game right away. Reality, he still doesn't even know what to make at this point. We see on the production tab nothing's building and he has 1.5k saved up. This really came down to, I would say, Maru being able to take advantage of the middle of the map by pushing in this direction multiple times throughout the game. The Mech player being aggressive, how about that for a change? And then also Reality not taking advantage of these two island bases fast enough. If he did have those bases, he could still win at this point. Like at this point, the game is decided by economy and who's mined more of the map, essentially, because to get up to this point, you have to both have armies that are potent enough to not be steamrolled, and that they'd be that they're able to kind of trade relatively well in comparison with each other, dependent on micro. Getting rid of the last of Reality's air army, Maru only has air units, but Reality only has bio units. The game is essentially over. Reality just didn't have he just didn't have an answer to the Widow Mines, I would say, and I really think that the siege tanks and just slow tank pushing across the map with his superior air force would have been enough to both zone out the Widow Mines and apply a lot of pressure on Maru's side of the map, especially unit compositional wise. But now Maru is the one who's able to slowly siege forward as Reality has no siege units left, and Reality is just going to go for kind of a desperate base trade. Um, Maru just slowly takes out all of the bases. There's nothing Reality can do. Blah 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 blah. So like supplies really tell the difference. Reality is just trying to be annoying as possible with his bio. I think this is what he should have done earlier on. If he doing this kind of play with his bio force while at the same time having an air lead is what he should have also been doing instead of going up to 100% air units, because going up to 100% air units for either side, either the mech player or the bio player, is just not a very good idea. Reality's last army is cornered. GG is called, and Maru is victorious. Good game. Cool strategy out of Maru.